Did you know some campers report the feeling of being watched all night, only to discover they weren't imagining it? In 1995, a group of college students camped in a remote part of Montana. Thinking it was just an animal, he ignored it, until he heard heavy breathing, slow and deliberate, just inches away from the thin fabric wall. He whispered to his friends, but by the time they listened, the noises stopped. The next morning, they found strange footprints in the dirt. They were barefoot, human-like, but unnaturally wide with long toes. Shaken, they stayed another night, and again the sounds returned. Footsteps, breathing, and faint whispering they couldn't make out. When they finally fled at sunrise, one of them glanced back and froze. From the edge of the tree line, a tall, thin figure was standing perfectly still, watching them. And here's the most unsettling part. When the photos from their disposable camera were developed later, the last picture showed their campsite at night. But none of them remembered taking it, and in the corner of the frame just at the tree line was the same tall figure, staring straight at the tent. Did you know one of the most common fears among campers is hearing something touch their tent in the middle of the night? One family camping in the Rockies in 2003 experienced exactly that. They had set up near a quiet stream far from other people. At 2 a.m., the daughter woke her parents after hearing faint tapping sounds moving around the outside of their tent. Her father assumed it was just branches or small animals, until the tapping became rhythmic, almost like fingers drumming. When he unzipped the tent to scare off whatever was out there, nothing was there. No animals, no wind, no trees close enough to touch the tent. He brushed it off and went back to sleep. But in the morning, they found large human-like handprints pressed into the condensation on the tent walls. Except, the handprints were impossibly long, with 6 fingers each. They packed up and left immediately. Did you know some campers have reported finding entire campsites that shouldn't exist? In 2006, a couple camping in Canada stumbled across what looked like an old campsite. A tent, burned-out fire pit, and even a backpack sitting on the ground. Thinking someone might be in trouble, they inspected the tent. Inside, everything was perfectly arranged, as if someone had just stepped out moments ago. But the gear looked decades old, covered in dust, and the tent fabric was brittle and rotting. They snapped a few photos, but when they returned with a ranger the next day, the campsite was gone. No tent, no fire pit, no evidence it had ever existed. To this day, the couple swears they didn't imagine it. Some believe it was a time slip, others a ghostly remnant of campers who never left the woods alive. Did you know that forests can carry sound in strange, terrifying ways? In 1987, a Boy Scout troop was camping in a dense pine forest. Around midnight, the boys and leaders were awoken by blood-curdling screams echoing from deep within the trees. They described it as part human, part animal, but not quite either. Thinking someone was in danger, a few leaders tried to follow the sound, but no matter which direction they went, it always seemed farther away. The screams continued until sunrise, when they stopped completely. The troop packed up and left early. Years later, one of the now-grown scouts returned to the area out of curiosity. He swore he heard the exact same scream again, except this time it was much closer. Did you know that there are dozens of cases where campers simply vanish without a trace in the woods? One chilling story comes from Oregon in the late 1990s. A young man went on a weekend camping trip with 3 friends. On the first night, everything was normal. Campfire, food, laughter. But when morning came, one tent was empty. His gear was untouched, his shoes still inside, but he was gone. Search dogs picked up his scent only 30 feet from the tent before it ended abruptly, as if he'd been lifted off the ground. No signs of a struggle, no tracks, and no trace of him was ever found. Locals say that part of the forest is cursed, and some campers claim they've heard faint voices at night calling their names from the tree line. To this day, his case remains unsolved, and some believe whatever took him is still out there waiting for the next camper to fall asleep.